My name is Dana, and I can tell you that the night my brother called to tell me I wasn't welcome at his wedding rehearsal dinner because I'm just a line I cook was the same night I decided to stop paying the mortgage on the house he lives in. But let me back up. I was driving home from a 12-hour shift at the restaurant when my phone lit up on the passenger seat. My brother's name on the screen. I smiled, because I figured he was calling to sort out the final details for the weekend. The rehearsal dinner was in 4 days. I had already bought a dress. I picked up on the second ring. "Hey," he said. His voice had that particular flatness it gets when he's rehearsed what he wants to say and doesn't want to be interrupted. I recognized it immediately. I'd been hearing that voice my whole life. "Hey yourself. What's up?" A pause. "So listen, Dana. Nicole and I have been talking." Nicole is his fiancée. I had never particularly warmed to her, but I had been polite. I had smiled at their engagement party. I had sent a gift from their registry without being asked twice. "Okay," I said, slowing for a red light. "Talking about what?" "About the rehearsal dinner. Her parents are flying in from Connecticut. Her dad is a partner at some big firm in Hartford, and her mom does charity board stuff. It's going to be a certain kind of crowd, Dana." "A certain kind of crowd," I repeated. I wasn't sure I had heard him correctly. "Nicole just thinks it would be better if the dinner was immediate family and the wedding party. Keep it intimate." I sat through 2 green lights without moving. The car behind me finally honked. "I'm your sister, Marcus. I am immediate family." Another pause, longer this time. "You know what I mean." I did know what he meant. That was the worst part. I knew exactly what he meant, and the knowing settled into my chest like something cold and heavy. "Her parents are going to ask questions," he said. "What everyone does where they work. You know how those conversations go." "I'm a sous chef at a James Beard-nominated restaurant," I said. My voice was very calm, and I was not sure how. "I know that. But Nicole's worried it'll come across, look, it's just one dinner. You'll still be at the wedding." I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my car in the middle of that intersection for a long moment, and then I drove the rest of the way home with both hands on the wheel and my eyes fixed on the road ahead, because if I let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened, I wasn't sure I would be able to drive safely. My phone buzzed 3 more times before I pulled into my parking spot. I didn't look at it. Here is what Marcus knew, and apparently had decided didn't matter. I had been making the mortgage payments on his house for 2 years. It started when he and Nicole moved in together. He had just been laid off from his marketing job, and their combined savings weren't enough to cover the down payment and keep up with the monthly payments while they both found their footing. Our parents couldn't help they had their own debt, their own slow financial erosion they'd spent years carefully not talking about. So I stepped in. I was 28. I had been working in kitchens since I was 19. I had scraped and staged and taken every double shift offered to me until I had enough put away to actually help my brother not lose the first home he'd ever owned. We set it up as a loan, technically. There was never a written agreement. It was family. It was trust. It was me believing, without any real evidence, that Marcus understood what I was giving up to keep him afloat. 14 months of payments. $1,100 a month. Direct transfer, first of every month, like clockwork. He had never once asked how I was managing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my apartment and stared at the ceiling and let myself finally look at the things I had been refusing to look at. The way Nicole changed the subject whenever someone at a family gathering asked what I did. The way Marcus had introduced me to his new colleagues at his birthday party last spring. "This is my sister." Nothing else, no context, as though my name and my work and my whole self were a detail he preferred to leave vague. The way he'd told me, when I first made sous chef, "That's cool. Good for you." In exactly the tone someone uses when they are not sure it is actually good. I had told myself I was being sensitive. I had told myself that I loved my brother and that people show love imperfectly, and that not everyone knows how to celebrate someone else's success with pure, uncomplicated joy. I had been very understanding and very generous with my interpretations for a very long time. 2 days after his call, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my coffee getting cold beside me. I logged into my bank and pulled up the recurring transfer, Marcus's mortgage. $1,100, scheduled for the 1st of next month, 8 days away. I moved my cursor over the option to cancel. I thought about it for a long time. Not because I wasn't sure. I was sure, with a clarity that felt almost physical, but because I understood that this was not a small thing. This was a door closing. Once I did this, I could not undo it and pretend I hadn't. I canceled the transfer. I closed my laptop and finished my cold coffee and went to work. The call came 6 days later. I was in the middle of prep, elbow deep in a stock reduction, when my phone started buzzing on the counter. I looked at the screen. Nicole. I let it ring. I had nothing to say to Nicole. Marcus called 20 minutes later. Then again. Then a text. Dana, we need to talk. Please pick up. I texted back. I'm at work. I'll call you later. I did not call him later. He showed up at my apartment that evening. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole and saw him standing in the hallway with his jaw set and his hands in his pockets, and I felt nothing in particular, except a very solid certainty about where I stood. I opened the door. You canceled the transfer, he said. Not a question. I did. He stared at me. Dana, the mortgage is due in 2 days. I know when it's due. I've been paying it for 14 months. He stepped forward as though he expected me to move aside and let him in. I didn't move. Can I come in? No. Something shifted in his face. A flash of something surprise, maybe, or the first dim understanding that this was not going to go the way he'd expected. Look, I know you're upset about the rehearsal dinner. I'm not upset about the rehearsal dinner, I said. I'm done funding the life of someone who's ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed of you. You told me I couldn't come to your rehearsal dinner because Nicole's parents might find out you have a sister who cooks for a living. That is the definition of ashamed, Marcus. His jaw tightened. You're overreacting. The transfer is canceled. If you need help covering the payment, I'd suggest calling Nicole's father. He's a partner at a firm. I closed the door. I stood on the other side of it for a moment and listened to him knock twice more, and then I heard him exhale sharply and walk away down the hall. I went to my couch and sat down. I waited for the guilt to arrive, the way guilt usually does, that creeping second-guessing, the voice that says maybe you were too harsh, maybe you could have handled it differently, maybe family deserves more patience than this. The guilt didn't come. What came instead was something quieter and more unfamiliar. It took me a moment to recognize it as relief. Marcus went to our parents next. I had expected that. My mother called me the following morning, before I had finished my first cup of coffee, and I could hear it in her voice immediately, that strained, deliberate calm. That means she has already decided what the right answer is, and is calling to inform me of it. Your brother is beside himself, she said. Good morning, Mom. Dana, the mortgage payment is not my responsibility. A sharp inhale. You made a commitment. I made a choice, which I'm now making differently. He could lose the house. I set down my mug. Then he should have thought about that before he called me 4 days before his wedding to tell me I wasn't welcome at a dinner because of what I do for a living. Silence. My mother is not often at a loss for words. When she doesn't respond, it means she's recalibrating, finding a new angle. Nicole's family. Mom. I kept my voice even. When Marcus called me, did you tell him not to? Did you tell him that was wrong? Did anyone in this family pick up the phone and call me after it happened, just to ask how I was doing? More silence. No, I said. Nobody did. I paid his mortgage every month for over a year, and nobody asked how I was managing that. And when his fiancée decided I was an embarrassment, nobody stood up. So I'm done. It's done. You're going to ruin his wedding. I'm not going to his wedding, I said. It was the first time I had said it out loud, and it settled over me with a strange peacefulness. Tell him I wish him well. I hung up. My father called that afternoon. He was briefer about it, more direct, which I had always respected about him, even when I didn't agree with him. You're punishing the whole family, he said. I'm stopping a payment that was costing me $1,100 a month. That's not punishment, Dad. That's a budget decision. Don't be smart about it. I'm not being smart. I'm being honest. I've been making that payment because I love my brother and I wanted to help him. I don't feel like helping someone who thinks I'm not worth being seen with. He was quiet for a moment. He's young. He lets Nicole influence him too much. He's 31, Dad. He's not young. He sighed. What do you want us to say to him? Nothing, I said. I don't want anything. The next 2 days were a parade of calls I mostly didn't answer. An aunt who told me that family sacrifices for each other, as though I had not been demonstrating that principle for over a year. A cousin who said I was being vindictive. My mother again. Softer this time, trying a different approach, focusing on how hard Marcus had worked to get that house, how much it meant to him, how Nicole was stressed about the wedding and didn't mean anything by it. I listened to their voicemails and deleted them without returning the calls. What none of them said was, "We should have stood up for you." What none of them said was, "That was wrong, what he did." What all of them communicated, in different registers of the same basic message, was that my job was to absorb the slight and keep writing the check. I found out about the rest of it from my cousin Jess, who texted me a screenshot without commentary. It was a post from Nicole's private Instagram, visible to what appeared to be a broad audience of her friends and some extended family. The caption said something about difficult people and staying focused on joy and how some family members can't be happy for you, and there were about 40 comments full of sympathetic emojis, and you deserve better, and some people are just bitter. I was the difficult person. I was the bitter family member. This woman, who had gotten my brother to call me 4 days before their wedding to tell me my profession was too embarrassing to be acknowledged at a dinner table she was posting about my inability to be happy for her. I read the comments once and put my phone down and went for a very long walk. I was gone about 2 hours. When I got back, I had made a decision. I drove to Marcus and Nicole's house the next morning. I hadn't told them I was coming. I rang the doorbell and waited, and when Marcus answered the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking like he hadn't slept well, I said, "We need to talk." Outside. He looked at me for a moment, and then he nodded and stepped out, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. "I saw what Nicole posted," I said. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Dana, I'm not here to fight. I want to say this once, clearly, and then I'm going to leave." I looked at him steadily. "I paid your mortgage for 14 months because I love you and I wanted you to have the stability to build a life. I did not do it so that I could be excluded from that life when it became convenient. I'm not angry. I'm done." He started to speak. "I also want you to know," I said, "that I'm not coming to the wedding. Not because I want to hurt you, but because I'm not going to sit in a room and celebrate a marriage that started with my brother calling me to say I wasn't good enough for a dinner table." Marcus's face did something complicated. For a moment, I thought I saw something real behind the defensiveness, something that might have been regret, or grief, or recognition, but then it closed over again. "You're making a choice," he said. "I am," I agreed. "So are you." I walked back to my car. He didn't call after me. The wedding happened on a Saturday. I worked a double shift. My sous chef colleague brought in a bottle of something good, and we shared it after close, and I told her a version of the story, and she said good for you with the particular conviction of someone who has had to enforce their own limits before, and I appreciated it more than I knew how to say. I heard about the wedding afterward, through Jess, who had attended and texted me a careful summary. The ceremony was beautiful. Nicole's parents were very elegant. Marcus had looked for me in the crowd before he walked in, which Jess knew because she had been standing near the entrance and watched his eyes scan the room, and then settle into something resigned. I tried not to feel anything about that, and mostly succeeded. What happened over the following weeks arrived slowly, the way consequences usually do. Nicole's parents, during their visit, had asked Marcus the full accounting of their financial situation, the practical adult version of the conversation that Nicole had apparently never initiated herself. When it came out that a sous chef from Texas had been covering their mortgage for over a year, and that this same person had been pointedly not invited to the rehearsal dinner, Nicole's father had asked a single quiet question. Why? Marcus hadn't had a good answer. Nicole, I learned secondhand, was furious with Marcus for a different reason than the one I would have expected. Not because she felt guilty about what they'd done, because she was embarrassed that her parents now knew their finances had been propped up by someone they'd dismissed. She cared, still, primarily about appearances. She just hadn't anticipated that the appearances would turn on her. I did not feel sorry for her. I felt something more complicated about Marcus. He was my brother. He was also someone who had shown me, with great clarity, that his comfort and his social presentation would always come before my dignity. Those two things existed in me at the same time, and I had stopped trying to resolve them. My mother called me about a month after the wedding. I picked up, because enough time had passed, and because I was curious rather than guarded. "Marcus wants to talk to you," she said. "He knows my number. He doesn't know what to say. That's his problem to solve." She was quiet for a moment. "Are you doing okay?" It was the first time anyone in my family had asked me that since this started. I let the question sit for a second. "Yeah," I said. "I'm actually doing really well." "I'm glad," she said. And she sounded like she meant it, and also like she wasn't sure what to do with the fact that I had been fine without them. "I owe you an apology. I should have. When he called you about the dinner, I should have told him not to do that." "You should have," I agreed. "But you didn't." "No," she said. "I didn't." We stayed on the phone for a few minutes longer. Not warmly, not coldly. Just two people finding out whether there was still something to say to each other. There wasn't much yet, but there was maybe the beginning of the possibility of something, and I suppose that would have to be enough for now. Marcus called 3 weeks after that. I let it ring, and then called him back an hour later, when I was ready. "I handled it wrong," he said. "The rehearsal dinner. All of it." "Yeah," I said. "You did. Nicole." He stopped. "I let Nicole's anxiety about her parents make me into someone I'm not proud of. You let her embarrassment about me become your decision. That's different from her making you do something." He was quiet. "I know. I'm not going to restart the payments, Marcus. I'm not asking you to." "Okay. I wanted you to know that I know. That I understood what I did." I sat with that for a moment. Understanding is not the same as repair. Knowing you caused harm is the first step, not the last one. But it was more than I had expected from him, and I was not so far gone in my own certainty that I couldn't acknowledge that. "Thank you for calling," I said. We didn't solve anything in that conversation. We didn't schedule a dinner, or make promises, or map out a path back to the relationship we'd had. But something shifted, slightly, and I noticed it the way you notice a window opening in a room that's been closed a long time. I still didn't restart the payments. In the months that followed, I started thinking about the restaurant differently. I had been working toward an executive chef position for 2 years, quietly, without telling many people, because I had learned to hold my ambitions carefully around a family that didn't quite understand what they meant. But I started talking about it out loud. To my colleagues, to my mentor, to myself. I was not just a line cook. I had never been just anything. I ran a kitchen that produced food that made people feel something. I worked with precision and creativity and discipline, and I was genuinely good at it. I had earned every position I'd ever held. I had also spent years partially hiding that, dimming it, making myself easier to overlook so that the people who were uncomfortable with my success could stay comfortable. I was done being easy to overlook. The executive chef offer came in February. I accepted it before I even called my mother to tell her, which felt like a milestone of some kind, the first piece of real news in years that I shared on my own timeline without needing anyone else's reaction to tell me how to feel about it. My mother cried a little on the phone. The good kind of crying, I thought. Marcus texted, "Congratulations. You worked hard for this. I mean that." I read the text twice, and then put my phone in my pocket and went back to the kitchen, where my team was already at work, and the smell of the stock on the stove was exactly right, and everything I had built was entirely my own. I think about that phone call sometimes. The one where Marcus told me I was the wrong kind of person to be seen with. I think about sitting in that intersection while the light turned green and not being able to move. I also think about what I learned from it, which is something I probably should have learned earlier but couldn't have, because you can only learn certain things when the person who teaches them to you is someone you love. Your value is not determined by how useful you are to other people. You are not a resource to be drawn on and set aside. The people who only see you when they need something from you are not the people whose opinions of you should carry weight. And the work you do, whatever it is, however it is regarded by people who have never had to do it, is yours. It is part of you. Anyone who asks you to apologize for it, to hide it, to make it smaller so that they can feel more comfortable, is asking you to be less than you are. I am a chef. I work with my hands. I have worked 12-hour shifts in 100-degree kitchens, and I have made something beautiful out of raw ingredients on a daily basis for over a decade. I have never once been ashamed of that. I am done being around people who think I should be. If this story hit close to home, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been made to feel like your work wasn't worth being proud of? Have you ever had to make the decision to stop funding someone else's comfort at the cost of your own dignity? Leave a comment, I read every single one. And if this is the first video of mine you've seen, consider subscribing. We tell stories here about people who decided they were worth more than the role their family assigned them. Because you are. You always were. I'll see you in the next one.